Yes, should be all set.
Great, thank you. I can move it on to the next slide here. Maybe. There we go.
Yeah, so I'm just going to reintroduce our project and kind of give an update on where we're at. So our goal of our team project for our master's program is to help the GLBN create a policy platform to tackle microplastics in the Great Lakes. Some ways we're going to go about doing this is by analyzing past, current, and proposed policies that reduce plastic use to make recommendations to the GLBN, identify a list of best practices that we've seen through other businesses that have been able to reduce reliance on plastics, and utilize this information to launch a promotional campaign among GLBN members, and also work to expand the GLBN and deepen engagement through work on microplastics. So, some things that we'll be delivering through the fall and into the spring: a list of best practices, a policy matrix, and a campaign plan to address microplastics. And where we are now, after our second semester working on this, we finished synthesizing our results from the 19 GLBN interviews we conducted this summer. Big shout out and thank you to everyone who participated. And now we're working on some outward facing deliverables such as the policy matrix, the campaign plan, and that will take us into the spring semester.
Think it might be nice just to pause for one moment and have the research team introduce yourselves just briefly, in case there's any members on who maybe haven't interacted with the project.
Yeah, definitely. My name's Alyssa. I'm a second year environmental policy and planning student. I'm from New York City.
I'm Lily. I am also a policy and planning student, and I'm from Rochester, New York.
Hi everyone, my name is Meredith. I'm a second year grad student. My focus is on behavior education and communication. I'm from Iowa. And we do have one more student on our team. Her name is Claire. She's also on the environmental policy and planning track. But she is in class right now taking an exam, so she'll be joining us shortly at the end. So thanks for being here, everyone.
Yeah, and I would love to just emphasize what Alyssa said. Thank you all so much who have participated so far in our interviews. Your insight and from all the questions we asked have been really valuable in this project. And I just want to go ahead and kind of share some of the things that we found. Just kind of like a layout for what this webinar slash workshop is going to look like. We're just going to talk for a couple more minutes about this project, and then we'll have a chance to hear from Motel Bear Lake about everything that they have done to kind of reduce some plastic, some barriers they still face, and opportunities for businesses in their work to reduce plastic use. And then we'll kind of move on to more of an open-ended networking workshop opportunity for everyone to be able to talk about these things that we've learned from Motel Bear Lake, different opportunities and barriers again with plastic reduction, and just talk about maybe some policies and things like that for the GLBN to keep an eye on. But some things that we found from the interview is that there's quite a large knowledge gap. We asked a question: how would you rate your concern level on a scale from 1 to 5, 5 being high on microplastics? And we had an average response rate of 4.8 out of 5. We asked that same question about knowledge and received an average of 3.5, or sorry, 3.2 out of 5, which just shows there's kind of a gap between knowledge and concern on this issue. But we did hear from a lot of members that they're hearing more about microplastics. It's becoming a bigger issue. And again, awareness is growing. Some business barriers and practices that we also heard about was that cost and kind of suppliers' plastic use are the biggest barriers to reducing plastic use. And there's no one size fits all solution to this problem. We'll talk about this more later, but businesses really do need time and capacity to be able to adopt some solutions. We also interviewed a few experts about microplastics policies, and we talked about this within a lot of our interviews with GLBN members as well. It's just that there's a lot of state opportunities coming up that could address plastic pollution, such as EPR, which is extended producer responsibility, repealing the ban on bans, which would allow municipalities to be able to ban the use of single-use plastic takeout containers and bags. There's some microplastic monitoring bills and strategy plans in the works, and then some polystyrene or styrofoam bans. And one big issue that we found is that there's kind of a federal gap. There's no cohesive national policy, which can kind of lead to a fragmented state action. So we talked a lot in the interviews as well about the role of the Great Lakes Business Network and what we can do to address this issue. And a lot of members reported a desire for more networking opportunities and educational materials, such as a webinar like this, different events for members to be able to meet each other, maybe committees, and one-pagers and other educational materials just to kind of increase that knowledge level. And the biggest thing that we found is that everyone here has such a big connection to the Great Lakes. That's what kind of brings us all together, and why we care so much about issues like microplastics that impact the Great Lakes. Um, and the Great Lakes and clean water are important to all businesses interviewed, especially here. In the Great Lakes region, clean water is so important. It's kind of the foundation of a lot of the businesses here. So we're really happy to hear that this is something that we're all able to connect on and kind of lays the foundation for our work in plastic pollution. But does anybody have any questions about kind of our project so far? Any questions about the interviews or anything like that before we move forward? And if you'd like as well, I can pop our email in the chat if you have any questions that you think of later. You can feel free to send them our way, or any feedback that you had from any of the interviews if you were a participant or just from this webinar in general. I'll throw our email in the chat.
Totally. And I'll just add that we've been really fortunate to have the students working with the GLBN starting about a year ago, and they will be continuing with this project through April. So if you maybe didn't understand that this was happening and want to participate in some way, we definitely encourage you to get involved and connect with the students because they've truly been learning so much from businesses in GLBN about what is happening kind of at the individual level when it comes to plastics reduction and single-use plastic, which we know then contributes to addressing microplastics from the source perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. If you didn't have a chance to participate in any of the interviews this summer, we would love still to get your feedback or any ideas that you might have for the GLBN to take part in this. So yeah, definitely feel free to reach out. And I think now we'll turn it over to Lisa to introduce Kendall from Motel Bear Lake.
Yes, thank you. I have the high honor of introducing our member presenter today, Kendall McIntyre with Motel Bear Lake. Motel Bear Lake is a retro modern motel located up in Bear Lake, Michigan. And we have been so fortunate to have their partnership and membership over the past couple of years. From the beginning and from first joining, Marta and Kendall and their team has really been a huge leader in the GLBN, jumping right into several of our advocacy days in DC, both with the Healing Our Waters Coalition and the Great Lakes Business Network, and has really brought a lot of creative energy and enthusiasm, as well as peer-to-peer recruiting as they not only kind of transform their business, but really bring new energy and light into the Great Lakes Business Network and our campaigns. So I'm very fortunate to introduce Kendall today, and she will dive into some of the best practices that their business has implemented to reduce single-use plastic at the motel.
Hi, everyone. Um, as Lisa said, my name is Kendall. I am the operations manager at Motel Bear Lake. Like she mentioned, we're a 20-room retro modern motel in rural Bear Lake, Michigan, which is about 20 minutes north of Manistee. The descriptor retro modern really embodies what we're trying to create here. Nostalgic look and charm of a classic like 60s roadside motel, but with modern amenities and comforts that guests expect today. So on our next slide is our team. We're a super small team. From left to right, there is me, Marta, the owner, and then Ella, our senior housekeeper. For right now, it's just the three of us year round. During peak season, we bring on 2 or 3 more team members to have everything going. So my role as operations manager tends to be A little bit of everything. I do guest communication, staff management, system development, repairs, purchasing, really anything that just keeps a small motel running. Um, at Motel Bear Lake, one of our core values is taking care of people in an unmatched way. Being inclusive and welcoming to everyone is incredibly important to us, and we really try to take care of everyone that we interact with, from guests to staff and definitely our community. Ultimately, we want the work that we do here to genuinely improve the quality of life for the people that are around us. Another core value that I feel really connects to this whole conversation around microplastics and environmental protection is caring for this land with intention, gratitude, and respect. We want to honor the indigenous people who cared for this area long before we did and make sure our stewardship of this property and our place in this community as a whole reflects that responsibility. So this past year, Marta really embraced the partnership with GLBN. Like Lisa had mentioned a few things. She participated in a few DC fly-ins. She connected GLBN with Up North Pride, and she's worked really hard to kind of spread the word to other small businesses in our area and just try and get more people that we know and respect involved because we really love um, kind of everything that's been going on and want to help GLBN gain some traction. She has been really passionate about understanding how our business fits into the bigger picture of Great Lakes health, community well-being, and really specifically sustainable tourism. Um, and then our attention to microplastics specifically became more focused after Meredith reached out this past spring to interview me for her team's project. That conversation was really great, and her questions really helped me realize how interconnected everything is. The Great Lakes, environmental protection, government policy, the economy, local tourism. So ultimately, I mean, it touches all of the livelihoods of the people who live and work in northern Michigan for us, but obviously all of the Great Lakes states. We're a small operation, but we're really trying to be part of this system that's a lot bigger than us, and that's why I'm here to share a little bit of our story. So to start on the steps we've taken to reduce microplastics at our motel, I'm going to be completely honest. Most of our decisions came from operational needs and changes that we needed to make sure that our systems worked, and sustainability benefits were like a byproduct of that. Um, when you're starting a business, growing a business, or just facing the economy, your first priority as a business is survival. You have to stabilize the business financially and systematically before you can focus on intentional environmental choices. But as we've grown in our operations, we've had more capacity to consider our impact and lean into sustainability a bit more. One of our biggest systems that we've implemented from day one was installing electronic keyless smart locks. Our business model requires remote check-in and flexible access, so traditional keys or key cards weren't going to be practical for us. In making that choice, we eliminated thousands of plastic cards that would have been standard for a hotel operation with other electronic locks. So it's a little non-traditional for a hotel, but it worked for our model and had a positive impact on reducing microplastics, which is a win. Another early decision, installing refillable soap, shampoo, and conditioner dispensers in all of our guest rooms. That was significantly more affordable for us when we ran all the numbers, and it drastically cuts down on plastic waste compared to normal disposable toiletries that you'd get in a hotel. So similar to that, we also purchase bulk cleaning supplies with refillable bottles and, use washable rags and things instead of paper towels whenever that's possible. So just trying to, carry that through other systems where we're focusing more on buying in bulk when we can to reduce packaging as well as just product packaging, bottles and bottles and bottles. One of our biggest operational changes that I'm the most proud of was ending our linen rental service and bringing all of our laundry in-house. In the beginning, we just didn't have the equipment or staff or capacity to handle that workload. We also didn't have the money to invest in that equipment or extra staff time, so we decided to use a linen rental service right from the get-go. Every single bundle of rented linens arrives wrapped in single-use plastic, and we hated that always. And we also went through dozens and dozens of bundles each week, not to mention the environmental impact of weekly or twice weekly deliveries and pickups from all the way from Grand Rapids to Bear Lake. That's a good 2-hour drive. It took us a couple of years here operationally, but eventually we did have the capacity and access to resources to transition our linen management in-house. We were able to eliminate that plastic waste from them completely. We lowered our carbon footprint from eliminating those deliveries. We were able to increase staff hours, which is really great and really meaningful in such a small area. And ultimately, we reduced our largest operational expense by more than 60%. So that's a proud labor of love from my part. Bringing that all in-house was really rewarding and definitely came with challenges and time, but so worth it. We've made smaller changes too. We've replaced like single-use coffee cups, which are plastic lined so they don't leak through. With ceramic mugs, we've got reusable cutlery offered to our guests instead of anything disposable. And we try our best to buy supplies locally whenever possible to avoid extra shipping and the packaging waste that comes with ordering online. Another model that is core to Motel Bear Lake is thrifting and buying secondhand. This is often a more affordable option, obviously, but it also helps us to avoid fast furniture. It reduces on excessive packaging and it gives donated or unwanted items another life outside of the landfill. That's something we have carried from other business operations to here right from the start, and a majority of our furniture has been thrifted or purchased secondhand. So that's something we love both doing and, being a part of it being environmentally friendly. And one of our future projects that we're really excited about is installing a water bottle fill station at the motel. Our building was built in the 60s, so the little sinks can't really fit anyone's reusable water bottles that people use today. And that means that a lot of guests end up buying plastic water bottles or jugs of water for their stay. So we're hoping that by having a dedicated fill station on site, it can cut down on a bit of that plastic bottle use here and, yield some greener results. None of this is going to eliminate microplastics by any means, but I really think they're meaningful steps that add up over time. So, really proud of the effort that we've put in so far, even if it wasn't our primary focus initially. Next up would be the challenges. Before getting into like challenges specific to us, I'm going to start with the obvious, which every small business feels immediately, and that's the cost. Um, it drives every decision you make as a business, and it has to for you to survive. So even if something has really great long-term benefits or savings, the upfront investment can be that initial roadblock. New systems, new equipment, new products, staff hours, all of that adds up financially. And when you're still building your footing as a business or facing hard times, those initial costs can just put a full stop to any potential changes or new systems. There are great choices that save money down the road, but finding resources to help make them feasible is a huge challenge. And we've faced that ourselves. We've, gotten grants and local help for being in a rural area and things like that. But it's, there's still a lot we want to accomplish that we just don't have the resources for yet. So a lot of our journey has been figuring out how to make progress without, putting ourselves in any kind of position where we're sacrificing financial stability to be perfectly sustainable right away. Another big challenge for us is being in a rural area. Rural area equals limited resources. We don't have refill stores or sustainable supply shops nearby, so we end up needing to order a lot of things online, which creates more packaging waste. Our closest large city is Traverse City. That's where I purchase a lot of our operational supplies, but even that doesn't begin to compare to the resources in places like Grand Rapids or Detroit or Ann Arbor. So our rural location is a hurdle in and of itself. And that also means we have a smaller hiring pool. So certain projects or system updates do get pushed back until we have enough support to make them happen. In this area, there's also the part where we're introducing newer systems. And a lot of people are used to a more traditional form of hospitality. Things like smart locks and tech-based check-in can be second nature to a lot of people, but totally unfamiliar to others. So it can feel kind of unexpected or unwelcoming to some guests that show up and thought they'd get a key for their room at the little roadside motel. And it also requires a lot of extra training for most of our staff. So this is something we've had to be really patient with. We make sure our staff knows how to comfort guests who are unfamiliar with our systems, and we try to be honest with everyone about why these tech tools are necessary for the way we operate. In general, I would say this has been well received, but it's like definitely a hurdle at the time of, a guest coming in and being surprised by the way we do things. We have adopted a lot of phrases around the motel since we've started, and one of them is done is better than perfect. We often say it about projects or wish list ideas that have been pushed back, but it absolutely applies here. You don't have to overhaul everything at once, and you don't have to be completely plastic free right out of the gate. Every small step moves you in that right direction. And at that pace, doing what you can when you can is what makes sustainability realistic for small businesses like ours. I do believe it will really make a bigger impact over time if other businesses view it that way as well and try to get involved however they can, big or small. So, we just really appreciate the opportunity that Meredith and her team, as well as GLBN, has given us to connect, share a little bit of our story and our journey. We really have loved being a part of this community, and like mentioned at the beginning, had a big gap in our concern of microplastics versus our knowledge and awareness. So getting involved in this project as a whole, getting involved, even just having the interview with Meredith has been like really eye-opening, and it's allowed me to look at things that are normal operational decisions or just standard practice and see if there is a benefit or how there could be a benefit to reducing microplastics or just being more sustainable and environmentally friendly in general. So thank you guys. I'm really happy to have been able to kind of share this with other GLBN members and just hopefully offer a little hope that it's not impossible to make those changes.
Great. Thank you so much, Kendall. Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I think, yeah, just like reflecting on all the conversations that we've had and what you've said today. I appreciate how you guys are very like practical as well when it comes to business philosophy of like we do need to survive and it's okay if that is kind of the main focus and the sustainability, environmental things come second. It seems like you guys are very thoughtful with everything that you do, being able to thrift things and make even just small changes, which is really great. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. I hope that I can stay at your motel sometime. It looks so cute. Um, but yeah, we have time for just a few questions for Kendall. If anybody is curious to learn more about, some of the changes that they've made or the challenges, or if you just have comments that you want to share, we can take a few questions for Kendall before we kind of move into some more questions that we have for the large group, and just kind of getting into more of like the workshop discussion. But feel free to come off of mute, or you can type your question in the chat, but would love to hear from you. And also, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself as well, since I don't think all of us know each other. So, yeah, any questions for Kendall and Motel Bear Lake before we move on?
I have one question. This is Lisa Dinan, Program Manager for the Great Lakes Business Network. And I know you mentioned a little bit about how businesses, or not businesses, guests have had, some questions or maybe negative feedback around the key cards in particular and the digital check-in. I'm wondering if, you've had any positive reactions to from people who maybe appreciate why you're doing this or when you explain, why you're making some of these choices, if guests have kind of supported those decisions.
Yeah. I mean, if a guest is approaching and confused about check-in, obviously, like in hospitality, the goal is to eliminate any confusion right away. So you don't always get the opportunity to fully jump into reasoning behind, why we're doing this. But when given the opportunity, or more accurately, when our people find us, is kind of how we put it, like the demographic that we are kind of marketing towards comes and stays, you get to have really meaningful conversations with them about like our values, our practices, and like the choices we're making as a whole. And they do have really positive feedback. I would say in general, the guests who struggle don't necessarily like applaud us on the tech-based things just because they are unfamiliar and often aren't thrilled with the way that the world is changing as a whole. But in general, community, staff, locals, and anyone who's like understood or gotten kind of the full breakdown of our values here really have received us really well. That was something from the get-go that we were worried about in a rural area, and it's been received really, really well, which we're so glad.
Yeah, that's
I
great to hear.
see. Yeah, I see a question here in the chat.
Yeah, go for it.
Have you updated any building systems that you saw were both costing a lot yearly? For us in Chicago, the cost might be very different, toilets. Um, we have had a lot of plumbing that we've needed to update. We have a pool, which is another one of our very big expenses. So bringing plumbing up to date has been a big challenge. All of the water here is controlled by the village, which is very small and very slow moving. We've got a lot of pipes that leach lead, and so it's just a matter of slowly but surely upgrading what we're able to. Um, those issues are a lot harder to make happen because they can interrupt operations, obviously. So we're really intentional with managing expectations of guests if we do have big projects like that going on. We've updated like doors and windows, which was a huge project to help with losing heat and air conditioning. That was another big project where we really had to, manage expectations for our guests that we are a work in progress, and what we're doing is trying to honor this property and make the most comfortable guest experience possible. So, like, number one suggestion for any business always is manage expectations. Like, uh, under commit and over deliver, just make sure that your guests understand why you're doing this, and they'll have a lot more understanding that you're humans and that not everything's going to be perfect, but you're trying your best. So,
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your insight and expertise. And thank you for the group for asking those questions. I think we'll go ahead and move into kind of more of the large group discussion piece of our workshop webinar today. And I'll let Claire kind of lead us in this. She is our fourth team member that you guys didn't meet in the beginning, but she is here now. And Lisa, I think if you want to go ahead and pause the recording at this point.